Welcome back to Driving Maul on Loud Radio, where blokes judge rugby every Thursday, 5 p.m. Sharky.
Hello, bud. Excited?
Rather. Now, before we get started with the excitement, a little bit of a rest in peace for a legend of world rugby, really. Former Wales fly half and legendary broadcaster Cliff Morgan died after a long illness at the age of 83 today. He won 29 caps for Wales, another 4 for the British and Irish Lions during an 8-year career, and also captained his country on 4 occasions, as well as led the Lions during their tour of South Africa in 1955. And then after hanging up his boots, he became a respected commentator and writer, and is best remembered for his description of Gareth Edwards' try for the Barbarians against New Zealand in 1973, considered one of the greatest in the history of the sport, and he will forever be immortalised by these words. Have a listen.
John Pullen, England's captain, the hooker. McBride trying to get. Wilkinson going. Williams again. Everyone with him. Sid going. Very little support. Good tackle by Slattery of Ireland. Almost on the halfway line. Kirkpatrick to Williams. This is great stuff. Phil Bennett covering. Chased by Alistair Scone. Brilliant. Oh, that's brilliant. John Williams. Brian Williams. Pulling. John Dawes. Great dummy. David, Tom David, the halfway line, brilliant by Quinnell. This is Gareth Edwards, a dramatic start. What a score! Oh, that fellow Edwards. If the greatest writer of the written word would have written that story, no one would have believed it. That really was something. John Pullen, England's captain.
Pause.
Wow, that is. I was actually getting goosebumps listening to that.
Indeed, and
Indeed, typical Don response when he's not listening.
yeah, I'm trying to do 400 things at once, and you're asking me a question. But yeah, forever immortalised in those words, by those words, and he will be missed. Part of him and Bill McLaren are like the inspiration behind me for ever wanting to become a rugby commentator of sorts. So yeah, rest in peace, Cliff Morgan.
Yeah, definitely, and what great words. Do you perhaps anyone out there remember the 2 massively high tackles?
Yeah, I know.
Wow, some good coat hangers. The guys would be getting a couple of weeks for that.
Yeah, totally. So, on to Western Province Club Rugby, and there were supposed to be a couple of games last night, but the inclement weather in Cape Town had them called off.
You can say. Now, for those of you, Durban were going to host Marties. For those of you who've ever played out that way, you know that it's quite a bit of clay on the field. It's risen and everything, but sheesh, I can just imagine what a mud bath that would have been. It would have been sticky as all hell. But the game was called off, and also the Vics game. They were hosting Bellville at the Donny Craven Stadium. Both those games called off. Very interesting. It's quite a tight end to the season. Obviously, Durban have got 2 more games left. It's against Marties and UCT, and they need to win both of those. One with bonus points, if I'm not mistaken,
unless Hammies
qualify.
Yeah, unless Hammies lose. If Hammies lose and Durban win 1 with a bonus point, then they will finish above them, only just.
Well, basically where we sit now is Marty's on 16, played 16 with 68 points. They obviously, them and UCT and Vics don't qualify for the Community Cup, but the front runners are Hammies and Durban, and Hammies have played 17. They've got 1 game left against Bellville Tech. Yeah. They've played 17 on 64 points. And Durban have played 16 on 60 points.
That's right.
So it's going to be a very, very tight finish. And I know Durban have got a tough run in with Marties and UCT, but between, they're a side that could easily roll both of them. That's going to be a tough game.
And look, both of them did what they needed to do this weekend in terms of getting the W to stay in contention. Durban beat Helderberg 24-7, and Hammies pumped Tygerberg 53-24. Marty's absolutely destroyed Belleville 64-3. UCT beat Belhar away, that's a tough game no matter what anyone else says.
But judging by the score, 16-28 to UCT, it kind of explains it. And, Belhar sitting at the bottom of the log, and they kind of, one extra try, and all of a sudden Belhar in with contention.
Yeah.
To win. Sorry, not for the league.
Then obviously, the games were rained off this week, or last night. So this weekend, Hammies obviously have a bye because they've played one more game. Marty's play SK. UCT are playing Durban. Tough game for Durban. They need to win it to stay in contention. Vix play Helderberg and Tygerberg play Belhar. And then the rained off games are next week, Wednesday, Durban Marty's and Vix Belleville. So it's backing up 2 tough games for Durban to try and secure that Community Cup spot.
And then they get a week. Oh, when are they taking on UCT?
No, that's this weekend. So they got UCT this weekend, Marty's on Wednesday.
Yeah, so they got some two tough ones. And basically, the only people that could really, or the only club that can really challenge Marty's to the Super A championship winning number one, I should try that again, are UCT. And they're obviously, with them losing just to Marty's last week, it's going to be a bit of a tight one. So looking forward to the end of that season. But right now, all the focus is on the Community Cup and who gets automatic rights into the competition and who Western Province will give the wildcard to. Because, if you might remember, if Hammies finish top, they qualify automatically, and the wildcard cannot go to a side that was there last year. So Durban will not get it, and SK Warmers will not get it.
Ah.
Okay. So if Durban finish top, then Hammies might be able to go.
Vix.
But no, Vix are a university.
Oh, of course. Well, are they? They're a university affiliate.
Nope. They're part of Marty, Stellenbosch University.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Okay.
So going to be quite interesting. I tell you one thing.
Tech.
I would like to see Tygerberg there. I think they deserved it last year.
They probably deserved it last year. Yeah. No, you're right.
But it's going to be a tough one. To be as neutral as possible. I think if Durban finished top, Hammies have been the best finishing open club side for 2 years in a row now, and you would think that they would get it. They didn't get it last year. If anyone doesn't get it outside of that, I think Tygerberg deserve it. So
well, and certainly in terms of log position, they are the next in line.
It didn't work like that last year.
Wild card means nothing.
Correct.
And then the one last thing that I do want to talk about, because I picked up this story standing watching Wynberg versus Sachs on Saturday.
Shocking.
And it sounds like there was a whole lot of chaos at False Bay between False Bay and Primrose on Friday night. First off, in an under-20 game, a little scuffle broke out on the touchline. One of the under-20 False Bay parents stepped in to break it up, literally separated people, and the Primrose coach floored him.
Allegedly. I know we're hearing this via. I've heard a few things as well. Like it's one thing though. It made front page of the newspaper on Sunday, where obviously all the club rugby results are.
No, that was the next game. That was the first team game.
The first team game. Yeah,
they didn't even talk about the under-20 game that was blown short, did they?
Yeah, they did mention it, and it was quite a tough one. And there was quite a lot of animosity and a bit of banter on Twitter because everyone's pleading innocence and saying it was the other guys, and it's always the same stuff. And, no one's really going to admit to it, but it's a reality. And Western Province, if I'm not mistaken, has the worst club violence in the country. And you can turn around and say it's the same old clubs, but there are always other guys involved. And whether it's you trying to intimidate them and rile them up and see what the ref will do if the ref buckles and can't control it, and if you can't control the guys on the sideline, it gets a bit out of hand, and nobody likes to see it. I saw it tweeted on Friday night, and False Bay were quite upset, and they were quite good about it. False Bay tweeted that they were very unhappy with what had happened, and a club of Primrose's stature should never let it get to that point.
Look, and I mean, there was a bit of needle in the game as well because it was a top of the table clash.
That's the thing is, who's intimidating who and who can't take the pressure. And at the end of the day, Bay won comfortably. I think
20 points to 7.
To 7, yeah.
And what that does is just in terms of the league, because obviously there's no relegation, but there are sides going up. But
the top 5 sides.
But it's also about the title. And False Bay are top on 63. University of the Western Cape are second, played a game more on 59. Primrose are on 58. So the win for False Bay stretched their lead from 1 point to 5 over Primrose. And the other sides that are guaranteed coming up looking at this are NNK and Kales River. But anyway, yeah, club violence, not really what we all want to hear, and half the reason a lot of us gave up playing club rugby, to be honest.
Nobody likes it. I don't care what league you're in. So
Yeah,
hopefully,
exactly.
hopefully we can sort that out and move it on.
Yeah. The next event to talk about is obviously, and Shark will be looking forward to this because it's the start of the Aviva Premiership this weekend.
Yeah, we've been 2 weeks in the top 14, and finally the Aviva Premiership gets started. Just a note out to the listeners, if you follow the hashtag Driving Maul, I'm going to be posting some videos during the course of the show, and I know Don is also posting a few little tidbits out pertaining to what we're discussing. But I'm just going to bomb on Twitter at the moment is the top 10 tries of the Aviva Premiership last year. That's on now. It's a YouTube clip, and it's 7 minutes long and pretty decent to watch. But yeah,
after you've listened to us.
the Aviva Prem getting underway, and do you want to take us through the first games?
Before we get on to the games, I'm more interested in the lack of big name signings. Like, the salary cap has clearly come to the fore in England because the French have been going ballistic, and particularly when you look at South Africans, there have been a lot of South Africans signed by French clubs, and no real big names have headed towards the Aviva Premiership. The only real big name that seems to have gone anywhere other than France is Kirshner, who's going to Ireland. And then like the biggest move probably in the off season has been George North to Northampton.
Yeah, it's almost the only massive signing that has moved. Most of the other guys, obviously Johnny Sexton has moved to Racing Metro.
Yeah,
that was the big talk. But the Welsh have managed to hold on to a number of their players. I do know that two of their big names are up for contract renewal soon. I think they're busy discussing with Welsh Rugby Union at the moment. But in terms of what's the movement, it's been more internal movement as to what's going on. The other one is James Hook gone to Bath. It's his first season.
And Henson to Bath as well.
Henson to Bath.
His sixth club in 6 seasons.
Yes, and read an interesting article yesterday about the club managing director or CEO said if he is caught with a beer in his hand, he's out of here. Because, in fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bomb that on as well. First
team
week
building.
First week or two at the club, went out for a couple of drinks, and one of his fellow teammates knocked him out cold.
Totally.
Got footage of that. I'll send it up for now.
So the first game of the Aviva Premiership this weekend, the Newcastle Falcons are taking on Bath on Friday night in Newcastle. Then Saturday, it's London Irish versus Saracens at Twickenham. That should be fun.
Yeah.
Gloucester versus Sale at Kingsholm, Northampton versus Exeter, Wasps versus Harlequins, that should be a good game, and then Tigers versus Worcester Warriors. So no real top end clashes, it's more of a finding your feet, but
it is, and obviously the first round is quite key. I mean, if you look at what happened with Clermont last week and the week before, they've lost their first two games. And it's important if you want to challenge for the end of the year. You need to start putting things to bed, especially the home side. You don't want to be losing first up, and you don't want to start the season off that way. So
no, and I mean, for me, it's tough to call any of the results. The one I'd probably watch would be the 1 o'clock kickoff, London Irish versus Saracens. That's 1 o'clock South African time. That could be worth a gander, particularly seeing as the big football matches are both on Sunday. So there's no real reason to watch the Premier League from my perspective. On to the top 14. The round 3 is this weekend, and there's lots to talk about in terms of the results. But the biggest talking point out of the top 14 is around the South African contingent in the box squad. 6 of them are flying back to France to play, 5 on their debuts before jetting off to Brisbane via Sydney. Habana, Steyn, Kruger, Vermaak and Steenkamp will all have travelled SA Argentina, SA France, Oz in 2 weeks ahead of a test on a ground they've never won. Chile, omitted from the South African tour because of an injury, so he stayed at home, has had to go off to France to join Racing Metro. No, Toulouse.
I'm not sure. I seem to think it might be Stade Francais.
Well, whatever. Wherever he's going, he wasn't fit enough to travel with the box and has now been picked to go with the box, but has to go to France to prove his fitness. Makes about as much sense as tits on a ball.
I just can't believe that it's such shit and poor management to allow that contractually whether it's allowed, how it's allowed, and like sort of for the Springboks' sake and the players' sake, to let the guys travel so much to play games when it's in the middle of a rugby championship and it's only 1 week. It's not like it's 2 weeks.
No, exactly. In between flying to Argentina and South Africa and Australia, off to France. Anyway, doesn't bode well for the Boks in my opinion, but at the same time, those guys are kind of used to travelling across the globe.
But I don't care. It's got to hurt. It's got to hurt.
Yeah. On the plus side, Morné Steyn is starting off the bench for Stade Francais. And then the other news is Toulon's proposed World Cup of Clubs has taken a step forward to becoming a reality, with Mourad Boudjellah's club reportedly agreeing a date with Super Rugby winners the Chiefs for a match in February, which falls in between the Aviva the top 14 games, Heineken Cup games, and there's obviously no Super Rugby at that stage. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. On to results.
Yes. Day. You couldn't have picked it again. Second week running.
No, and I mean, let's start with the last game of the weekend.
I believe the game of the weekend by far.
Yeah. Now, after falling down 39-11 to Bayonne in their first game in the top 14, Oyonnax thumped Clermont 30 points to 19.
Who have just been promoted.
Yeah, Oyonnax have just been promoted to the top 14. Second game in top 14, first season, and they beat the Heineken Cup finalists, who've now lost back-to-back in their first 2 games of the season. Biarritz beat Montpellier 19-12. Castres finally got back on the wagon after losing last week, beating Grenoble 34-6. Perpignan Stade Francais 27-28 was the final score there.
Absolute humdinger. And Stade Francais are taking on Oyonnax this weekend, I think.
Okay, yeah, I think
they are. So it's a tough one.
I didn't put the bloody.
Oh no, Racing Metro. Sorry, Racing Metro are taking on Oyonnax, which is going to be actually a bit of a tough one. Them coming off a loss and Oyonnax with the win. But just following up after another cracker of a result is Toulouse smashed Bayonne 43, which is a good result. Brive beating Bordeaux 25-12. But sorry, I thought we were going to start on this. But the game of the weekend, as much as Clermont losing is huge, but Toulon and Racing Metro, and I thought Racing Metro were going to be in with a bit of a shout this year, have taken a bit of a beating from the United Nations, that is Toulon.
Yeah, but I mean, and that Racing side wasn't too shabby itself. I mean, you sent the team sheets out on Saturday or Friday before the game, and it was like, good God, look at that! It's
massive. But anyway,
and then obviously it was the clash of the fly halves, the 2 highest paid players in the top 14.
Probably rugby.
Possibly. And Johnny Wilkinson basically schooled Jonathan Sexton.
Took him apart. Johnny Wilkinson had a great game. Toulon ended up running out 41-14 winners. It was quite a tight game in the first half. I'm actually going to post video highlights of the game. Smith scored 2 great tries. Guito with the try. Some great work by Chris Massoy. So awesome, well worth the watch.
I know, and never mind that. Toulon finished the night with 13 men after Bastardo was sin-binned and Italian hooker Castro Giovanni. Hooker? No, he's a prop.
No, he's a prop. But I saw that.
I took that off of ESPN Scrum.
I didn't see what caused it, but
he was red-carded.
Antagonizing him afterwards, which was always good for him.
Yeah, he was red-carded as well as the Racing Metro lock Karim Ghazala, who was involved in the punch-up with Castro Giovanni. What it means is Toulon are top on 7, Toulouse and Castres are second on 6, but there's only 4 points between 1st and 14th because it's still early days in the season, and with the way the results have been going, it really one big win for Montpellier and they could be back up there. The games this weekend are Stade Francais, Biarritz on Friday, Clermont Toulouse on Saturday, Bordeaux versus Castres, Montpellier Brive, Racing Metro and Oyonnax, Bayonne Perpignan, and then Grenoble Toulon. So catch that if you're up for it. We are going to go and play some music. When we come back, we're going to be talking ITM Cup and Curry Cup and more. You are listening to Driving Maul, where blokes judge rugby on Loud Radio. Chat to you soon. Welcome back to Driving Maul on Loud Radio. It's time to get into the ITM Cup and then the Curry Cup. But I suppose before we do that, because the ITM Cup's been going on, it gets very confusing though, because they've got 2 divisions, but they seem to play cross-divisional. So you never really know who's doing what or what's going on where.
I know.
But as we know, the Waikato Chiefs took the Ranfurly Shield towards the end of last season and held on to it. They've defended it a couple of times. They entertained Otago.
And basically, to fill everyone in, is if you have the Ranfurly Shield, you can only lose it if you play at home. So if you travel away and you lose the game, you cannot lose it. You retain it. However, if you play at home, it's up for grabs. So if the wayside beats
you've got to play for it a specific number of times in a season. So you don't have to play every game. You can actually nominate which ones, but you've got to play a minimum of to keep hold of it. And it's a floating trophy. But Otago came to the Waikato. Now, Otago are playing in the B division of the ITM Cup.
Yeah.
The Waikato Chiefs, the Waikato are playing in the A division, for argument's sake. I forget
so they
what
selected Otago to have it up for.
Yes. And Otago have not held the Ranfurly Shield in 56 years. Not only that, as a province, they were in a lot of financial trouble last year and nearly went belly up and disappeared altogether. They haven't won 22 consecutive Ranfurly Shield challenges that they've put forward. And they promptly went and beat Waikato in Hamilton 26-19. Ended a 56-year drought. The logger wood hasn't been in their possession, as we said, since 57, but the championship side overcame a lack of ball and field possession, as well as 3.5 nail-biting minutes of added time after the final hooter to upset their premiership opponents.
It was absolutely brilliant. I watched the game, and it was a try by TJ Owani, who actually played Super Rugby.
Yes.
And I was so
Digby's cousin.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I was very surprised to see him starting off the bench. Anyway, promptly came on, scored a try, and that's that. I've actually posted the clip for you to have a look. It's massive. It's the equivalent of SWD winning the Curry Cup. I feel out of
quiz.
Yeah, and it's massive. What a great game though.
I actually haven't seen the game yet, so I'm going to definitely catch the highlights when I get a chance. But that adds a little bit of spice to New Zealand rugby that's well worth the entertainment. And as I've mentioned before, I've actually got a few mates that come from a small town of Ranfurly, which has got a population of something like 250. I do stand corrected, in the South Island of New Zealand. It's actually Crusaders territory originally.
But sorry, just to jump in there. Otago, coached by Tony Brown.
Oh, really?
Yep.
The White Maori.
Correct.
So Otago hold the Ranfurly Shield, and I can only imagine how south it went on Saturday night in Dunedin.
Man, on another level.
Can you imagine? Today, because it's obviously, you've got to love the ITM Cup, it's rugby every day.
No, yeah, they play Thursdays to Sundays.
Oh, it's outstanding.
Sometimes on a Wednesday, but yes, they play Thursday to Sunday, and it's absolute humdinger. They've recorded last year.
I've got results here: 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 28th, and 29th. I think they don't play on a Wednesday. Tuesday and a Wednesday. So
either way,
Thursday to Monday. Got it.
Okay,
there we go.
They recorded or had their best TV viewership of all last year. So it's working well. Not all the grounds are exceptionally full because it's a bit difficult.
Not exceptionally big either. So.
Yeah.
But Canterbury thumped the Waikato 47-10 just to back up on their losing the Ranfurly Shield. I don't think the boys have recovered yet from their upset.
Canterbury actually took them apart. I watched the game. Waikato within with a shot, probably just a touch after half-time. I think it was 21-10. They were sort of in the mix in the last 20 minutes. Canterbury took them apart.
And then yesterday, Wellington beat North Harbour in a cliffhanger. Victor Vito started off the bench for Wellington, weirdly. Bay of Plenty, where Bo Robinson is plying his trade in the off-season, trying to get his way back into the Wallaby setup. 24-20 over Hawke's Bay, and Auckland came from behind to beat Manawatu in another cliffhanger, and that was a shock result, really, because Auckland were expected to win that quite handsomely, and needed they won it at the death, but essentially. A couple of other results. Canterbury beat Tasman. The Northland Southland derby ended 13-9. Wellington beat Taranaki, and then, as we said, Otago thumped the Waikato 26-19. But it is a thumping when you steal the Ranfurly Shield from under the. And I stand corrected. I think the Waikato might have even been the ITM Cup champions last season.
Can't remember.
We'll have a look. So. Otago get to defend it now. Chances are they're not going to hold on to it for too long, but they've got it, which is the more important part. On to the Currie Cup. Now, I was 2 for 1 again this weekend. Sharky got 3 from 3, but what about them Lions?
And myself picked 3 away wins, and we were both hurtling up the score. Well, he didn't have to hurtle too much. He was up there already. Me, I was languishing at the bottom of most of them, so I'm a little bit up. But yeah, the Lions, wow. Put a bit of pressure on the Bulls and see if they'll crack.
Jesus. And let's just get this straight, because it was a 62-23 win at Loftus for the Lions, who haven't been playing Super Rugby, have lost their opening 2 games narrowly, it has to be said, but didn't really look like they had anything going for them this season. 20 points to 16, the Bulls led at half-time.
Yeah. So they put 1 penalty on and absorbed 50-odd.
40-odd, 46 points.
46, yeah, in the second. Wow.
46-3 second half score at Loftus for the Lions. For the Bulls, Francois Venter, Jurgen Visser and Travis Ishmael picked up tries. Ishmael actually injured himself in the game, as did Tony Janschis.
Yeah, Ishmael is out this weekend. He's been replaced by Ngani. But a lot of gas at kid, and Cape Town as well. Cape Town schooled, so I'm not sure where he went, but yeah.
And then the try machine, Anthony Formink, who's fast becoming the intercept specialist of South African rugby, with another intercept this weekend. But he has got some gas. If he takes an intercept, you just give up. Go back to the halfway line and wait for the kickoff.
Correct. Save your energy.
So I think they scored 9 tries, and 6 of them in 6 second half tries for the Lions. And let's not forget that Morne Mellet was yellow carded, and in a period they scored 3 tries while he was off the field, which doesn't happen often in top class rugby anymore. You don't see yellow cards resulting in a huge point swing, but it was the case for the young Bulls side against a rather experienced Lions team. And then Griquas Province, yawn.
Yep, but everybody knows the danger of going to play rugby in Kimberley, and you don't want to lose those games, because it will hurt you towards the end of the season. And Western Province had to go in and fight out a win, and with the 2019 victory, that's exactly
it was two turnover balls that resulted in the Province tries. Other than that, they didn't do anything to really threaten Griquas. But I tell you what a run by Dion Fourie. Old Brunnis usually scores off the back of legalised obstruction. This time he pins his ears back from 60 metres out.
The ball kind of squirted out the side towards the touchline, and it was almost like a scrum off break. He was that close to the sort of blind side. I think it was like a meter away from him. Big massive run, and that was really early on in the game.
Would have been burning as well.
Correct. early on in the game. But I know it was early in the game for that to happen, but that to me it almost seemed to break Griquas a little bit. Like, I think Province saw something that they could actually take it out and finish it off, and it got tight at the end, but yeah. And
then another turnover ball. Tian Liebenberg comes on the field, and the match winner, as it ended up being, even though Province were ahead at the time. But Reinhard Elstad gets fed the ball from the Liebenberg turnover and puts through a sumptuous grubber for Jean de Jong to chase down and score the try that ended up being the difference. And then for Griquas, they got a try through PJ Vermeulen near the end, where they turned down a couple of kicks at goal and a few other things, which was strange decisions. But anyway, the saddest news to come out of the whole event is Griquas locked Jonathan Ardendorf getting stabbed 3 times outside a nightclub in Kimberley after the game on Saturday night. Lucky to be alive.
Yeah,
thoughts are with him.
But a bit crazy.
Nuts.
Crazy. But we obviously don't know the everything around that. But we shall wait and see.
Yeah, and then Cheetahs Sharks. The Sharks winning this one 18-15 on Friday. Another nail biter as well. For the Cheetahs, Lapis Labuschagne and Raymond Rule with the tries. And then the Sharks, Jean Deysel and Louis Ludix. Fred Zillinger, he certainly looks like an interesting little prospect. He kind of drifted in from nowhere. He's been in and out of the Super Rugby side, but he's not a name that people have been talking about for the last 4 or 5 years through schoolboy rugby. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Correct. And I was impressed with him when he played Super Rugby. He wasn't out of his depth, and then when they announced that he would start this week, and I wasn't overly upset with it. I thought he's got enough to give it a go, and he was pretty handy. He's been retained this week as well at 10.
He has. With Kobus Reiniger inside him at 9. And we'll get onto the sides now, but it's a young 9, 10, 12 axis for the Sharks and the future of
13,
Sharks
19,
rugby.
12, 13. Who's that outside centre?
Louis Liddick. He's not that young anymore.
Scratch that.
But the 18-15 win for the Sharks, what it means in terms of the Currie Cup table is Province are top on 10 points. No bonus points yet. Imagine that.
Are you surprised?
And the Bulls are bottom on 6 points, which means that essentially if results go the right way, you could actually end up with Province being close to the bottom of the log and Bulls back at the top of the log again this weekend. So,
just on one game.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of Province supporters all cock-a-hoop and winding the Bulls supporters up, and I'm like, just shut your mouth. It's only 4 points between first and sixth. It's early days, and Province have got to go to a Lions team this weekend at Ellis Park, and let's be honest, the Province pack have not covered themselves in glory in recent weeks, and Province don't look like they're going to score a head full of tries, whereas the Lions have proved that they can.
My understanding is that Kitshoff was him and 3 other forwards who read the right act this weekend.
Yeah, but by Matthew Proudfoot.
Yeah,
I mean, he might have a baby face, but he's a large individual, old Matt Proudfoot. Yeah, so Friday night is Lions Province, 7:10, so it's tomorrow night. Free State Griquas, the nice little Cheetahs derby there. From Bloemfontein at 3 on Saturday, and then Sharks Bulls from Durban at 5:05. Griquas, they've had to include a young club player named Patrick O'Brien in their 22 because they've got a lock crisis following the injuries to Lichtorang Landman and Jakun Nepeng, and then Jonathan Ondorf obviously taking a blade to the chest and arms and whatever else had happened to him. So it'd be interesting to see how that youngster goes. Keep an eye out for him. Patrick O'Brien off the bench for Griquas at lock. The Cheetahs have made their first change of the season to their starting 15, with Rosoda Clark replacing Caleb Oosthuizen, which surprised me because I thought Oosthuizen had a pretty decent game against the Sharks. But no other changes there. What I did want to talk about...
Breaking news?
Yes.
We were discussing the Rugby Championship and how the eye-gouging incident was found not guilty.
Getting there.
Yeah, but I've just found out now that Leonardo Senatori, the guy who's...
for the bite,
suspended for 9 weeks, which is effectively 7 weeks.
Okay. We'll get on to... So we'll talk about that now. Well spotted, son. But what I did want to talk about is Teboho Opa Machore at lock for the Cheetahs. Impressive. He's actually a loose forward, but
really?
and he's been retreaded as a lock because of injuries, but thoroughly impressed by his ability. So keep an eye out for old Opa Machore. For the Bulls, Andre Pollard's going to make his Absa Currie Cup debut after an injury to Tony Janchis.
Long awaited one as well. We were expecting him to get his first cap last season already.
Yes, we were. Did pick up an injury at some stage in that season, which put paid to that. David Ballbrink, who's just been signed by the Bulls from the Kings, is going to start off the bench as well. And he's joined on the bench by Jacques Engelbrecht, who I think was on the bench last week. I just don't know if he got on the park.
He did get on the park.
Did he? Okay, I didn't see the game. Yeah, Tony Janchi's injured, so Andre Pollard starts against the Sharks against Freddie Zeilinger. So
I was just going to mention that it's going to be quite an interesting little run around.
Well, it's probably the right call by the Bulls, given that they figured they were going to be facing Zeilinger as opposed to Butch James. So it's going to be a clash of the youngsters, which I'm kind of looking forward to, because last week we had a clash of the Janchis brothers, which Elton clearly got bragging rights in the Janchis family after that game. The Sharks, as we said, Zeilinger at 10. Butch James sits on the bench. Kobus Reinach starts at 9 with Jaime Williams at 12. That is the future backline of the Sharks. And it's an exciting prospect because Jaime Williams hasn't done anything to disgrace himself in the first 3 weeks of the season.
Try and debut.
Yeah, so Zeilinger has looked impressive at 10. And Kobus Reinach has been touted as a future Bok. And seeing as he's the son of a Bok, it's highly probable that the genes run strong there. Province have made 2 changes to their side. Tian Liebenberg and Nick Groom get their first starts of the season.
Now, I saw in the paper yesterday that Tian Liebenberg might have pulled a groin. I've just checked a number of sites and they all say that Tian Liebenberg starting is... Have you heard anything on that?
No, I haven't. But I had to double check team sheets because the Supersport website said that Liebenberg and Schroeder were starting... Liebenberg and Schroeder... Scurra and Schroeder were starting,
Yes.
and Groom and Thing were on the bench. But my theory there is they copied and pasted last week's team, and they meant to swap them around and didn't.
Just because you do it.
Yeah. But the Province Pack are under pressure following the below par performances in recent weeks, while the Lions team is cock-a-hoop after the massacre at Loftus. And the Lions have brought in 2 Springboks for the game. CJ van der Linde starts against the front row that is under pressure, and Elton Janchi's at 10. Those are the 3 Currie Cup games this weekend. We need to go to some music, so it's time to do the old guess who's going to win.
The Super Bruce Sweat.
Jeez, and there's been a bit of it. I can't go past the Lions beating Province, but at the same time, Province beat the Lions both games last season.
Lions by 6.
I have a feeling that the Province are going to grind out a 1-point win.
Oh, that's a good shot.
Cheetahs Griquas. It's in Bloem. The Cheetahs, the Griquas are running low on forward options. They're picking up injuries all over the place, particularly at lock, and I don't see the Cheetahs losing that one. But it's going to be a tight one, so I'm going to go with a 7-point win for the Cheetahs.
I got a 14 on the Cheetahs.
Sharks Bulls.
Do I have to?
I just have a sneaky suspicion that Bull side are so damaged that they are going to get their shirts handed back to them and put on a bus and sent back to Pretoria by that young Sharks backline.
Sharks by 4.
But Andre Pollard pulling the strings if he's playing. He's under huge pressure. I've got to go with the Sharks by 5.
Cool.
So it's 3 home wins.
Yeah. There you have it.
There you have it. We are going to play a little bit of George Harrison, and when we come back, we are going to tear into the Springboks, talk about the Wallabies, and praise the All Blacks, and then call the Pumas what they really are. Filth! You're listening to Driving Maul on Loud Radio, where blokes judge rugby. We'll be back after a little bit of George Harrison. Welcome back to Driving Maul on Loud Radio, and it's time to talk Rugby Championship and all that went before us last weekend. But before we get onto that, just a bit of news that's coming out of the Southern Hemisphere countries, for want of a better word. And this one made me laugh because listen to the wording on this press release. The South African Rugby Union made their first move to make the Springbok a global brand. What the fuck? It already is. Anyway, they signed a 6-year multi-million rand deal with sports apparel suppliers ASICS as from 1 January 2014 through the next 2 World Cups. And talk of custom-made jerseys for each player in the future, fitted to their body type, blah, 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 bollocks. And then talk that it's going to drive the economy in South Africa with an ASICS factory opening up here. All I want to know is, am I going to be able to buy a Springbok jersey for under 500 rand?
How can they drive it in South Africa when we've signed with ASICS Europe? It's not ASICS South Africa, it's Europe. Yeah, I don't know.
Nobody knows.
Anyway, the only other side that I've ever seen ASICS as a technical brand on Castre, the French top 14 side. They have just released images of their some new kit. I'm not sure if it's the one that they're currently wearing, but looks pretty decent. Just an interesting brand I've ever seen in rugby.
And if I was ASICS, I'd be clever, and I would design some real, like, off-the-wall Springbok jersey for their first one, and then retract it after the furor about it, but you'll get people talking.
Good luck if Saru agreed to that.
No, it's not going to happen. But you could leak things by accident.
Oops.
Transfer news. Probably the biggest news that's come out of Super Rugby is Benji Marshall has switched codes and joined the Blues. Once Rugby League's World Player of the Year, the 28-year-old has signed for the Blues on a 2-year deal.
And apologise for wearing a Blues jumper because it wasn't supposed to be coming out or something. I didn't follow too much.
I missed all of that. But I'm
always kept secret, but it's in now.
I mean, there's a lot of rhetoric coming out of Australia and New Zealand about him. He's not overly loved. Sounds like he might be up there with Quade Cooper in arrogance, but you don't win World League Player of the Year for nothing. So it'll be interesting to see what skills he does bring. Dimitri Katrakic is good, has signed a 2-year deal with the Western Province. At what cost compared to what they could have offered him a year ago to keep him here?
Yes, that's a very, very good point you bring up. It's a 2-year deal, and that takes him.
I bet it's better than what he would have got 2 years ago. So well played, Dimitri. Welcome back to Cape Town.
Yeah,
get in there, son.
Correct.
Israel Folau has ended the speculation about his future, signed a 2-year extension with the ARU and the TARS.
As far as I know, he signed with ARU a little while ago. He just re-signed with an extension with the TARS, but he had signed with ARU before.
And then New Zealand's most capped Super Rugby player, 34-year-old Kev Mialamu, has committed himself to a further year with the Blues and the Blacks, with an option to extend for a further year next year, which could take him to the next World Cup.
In fairness, they are cucking off when it comes to hookers. When I was actually running that Southern Hemisphere Lions side, trying to pick a hooker, was really, really struggling. Andrew Hoare had a great game last weekend. This weekend, sorry. Yeah. Had a good game. He had a sort of a Bismarck type role in terms of fetching and doing very well. But, they've got 2 hookers that are hitting their prime or just outside their prime, and they don't really have a hell of a lot coming through in the youngsters.
Yeah. And then Ray Lilo has moved from Wellington to Che, joins the Crusaders in 2014, and it seems Julian Severe will be doing the same. A lot of talk that he's been the Crusaders have outbid in terms of the Canes in terms of getting him, and that will make for a frightening back three with Dag, and never mind the efforts of Tom Taylor and whatever else they got floating around.
Crazy.
And Guildford if he sorts his shit out. Then Mickey Arthur obviously can't go and coach anywhere in cricket because he's burnt too many bridges, but he's in talks to join the Western Province Force Tigers. The Force. The former South African coach of South Africa and Australia cricket teams is discussing a role centred around talent development and recruitment because he wants to stay in Perth. His family is settled there, but I don't know what kind of talent development recruitment you need to rock up at Ike's games week in and week out.
And it's not involving Perth
or Province's Vodacom Cup games.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and to be honest with you, I'd like to see what could he possibly bring. No offense, but just like tactically, he's not as astute as Clive Woodward was, as other guys that have tried to make their move around into different codes. But I don't know. Don't think it's a good idea.
Who gives a shit? I just worry about what he's going to pilfer from our shores. Puma's duo Leonardo Senatore and Pablo Matera, as we said, were cited for eye gouging and biting. Matera has got off. Senatore, as we said, breaking news now, has got a 9-week ban reduced to 7, but he will miss...
No, it's a 9-week ban, but effectively it's 7. He misses 7 games. So yeah.
Well, he's going to miss the rest of the Rugby Championship, so he's not going to New Zealand and Australia.
He should be missing a few minutes of his life if Etzebeth hits him.
And let's just say, well played, Eben Etzebeth, because he gets targeted because they think he might be a little bit mal in the kop, but he's not such a mulpit that all he did was turn around and say to the referee, "Kiki worm."
Yeah, I don't know about that. I still think that kid's got a couple of fisticuffs in him. There's no doubt about it. He did retaliate slightly, and personally, when the refs said, Steve Walsh said to, because Jean de Villiers came up to the ref and said, "Listen, we want to benefit from it now and not after the game."
But, dude, I've seen games, and this is what I want to get onto the hashtag ref stress, because I've seen games in the past where the ref has lost touch with whatever and wanders over to his TJ and asks the TJ if he can talk to the guy upstairs. And if he can't talk to the guy upstairs, the fourth official on the touchline has got a walkie-talkie and the guy in the box has got a walkie-talkie. It's bullshit by Steve Walsh as far as I'm concerned, and inexcusable. And Lyndon Bray hasn't come out and said a fucking thing about it all week.
Well, either way, I thought Jean de Villiers handled that exceptionally well.
He did.
But Etzebeth kept saying, we'll go back and see. So then Steve Walsh he was in comms with TMO and he went upstairs. But Etzebeth, it could have turned because Etzebeth did retaliate and it could have been cards for both. And that's just where his inexperience has come in a bit.
Oh, sure. He's
but
21.
I think the right result has come out of there, and biting deserves a hiding as well.
No, totally. Suarez got 10 games in football. It's only 9 games in cricket, in rugby. For the same offence. And yet
I don't want to talk about that.
No, I was just more interested in the fact that as a society we seem to be more accepting of biting in rugby than in football, because there was a huge, I suppose it just happens more in rugby. Anyway, let's move swiftly along to the Rugby Championship games. And, I mean, none of us actually saw a 25-point swing for Australia this week. They were always going to lose the game in New Zealand. But they did well to keep New Zealand down to just 2 tries.
Tweets of the week coming out of that game. One of the Aussie guys tweeted the Australian team are suffering from some serious paper cuts.
Yeah.
Yaku Paper was a shocker.
Him and Walsh were both shockers.
The try that was not allowed or not even gone upstairs for Stephen Moorsgood. The TMO still advised Yaku Paper to go upstairs and check it out, and he didn't have a look. I'm posting a link of it now, so go in and have a look. I've got the highlights of both the games as well as that disallowed, wannabe, not allowed try.
Yeah, 27-16 win for New Zealand. Ben Smith with 2 tries. That's 7 in his last 4 test matches after just 2 in his previous 13. But I tweeted it earlier, the most intense intercept of all time by Julian Severe. Floated ball to Kurandrani. He's just come on the park and he's reaching for it, and suddenly there's Julian Severe in his face with the ball in his hand. Like it was he didn't even have time to move his hands out the way. He just got bounced. So it was weird because Severe took ball and all, man and ball at the same time, but it wasn't his pass to take. It was an intercept. I've never seen an intercept take man and ball at the same time, but he smashed into him. So go and have a look at that. Check out the hashtag Driving Maul and find the tweet because it's a brilliant piece of footage. Israel Folau wasted on the wing as far as Sharky's concerned. Probably I'd have to agree based on the performances by Jesse Mogg. But he picked up an intercept later in the game. The 27-16 win for the All Blacks.
The Aussies were in with a shot for quite a bit of the game. They were in touch still, and there were a number of times where the ball and things just didn't work in their favour. I thought Aaron Smith, his tackle and spoiling of the ball was definitely a yellow card. It was key. If the Aussies had got quick recycle ball, you can almost guarantee that they would have scored. Stephen Moores tries another one, and they were in with a shot and a couple of intercepts, so they put the All Blacks under a hell of a lot of pressure. Just going back to the Israel Folau sort of discussion, I don't see the point in having Folau on the wing if he performed so well at fullback during the whole year. The only reason I could see it is if you have a better experienced fullback, and Jesse Mogg isn't on international stage. They've both got the same amount of experience, and I just thought it would be better to have Folau starting. Everyone wants to see him get his hands on the ball more, then why stick him on the wing?
No, totally. But we'll see what Ewan does against the Box in Brisbane next week. But talking Box, they are top of the table after the first 2 rounds of the Rugby Championship, but yet it was close.
I'm so bummed out. I was banking on a bonus point victory, and well, there you go. Have that.
Yeah, look, let's be honest. The RGs weren't exactly playing friendly rugby in Mendoza. It was spiteful. It was niggly. There was the alleged eye gouge incident and the confirmed biting incident. Bjorn Basson with a try, but 2 tries by Argentina. Mornay Steyn, thank God he's got his kicking boots back because he ended up being the difference with 2 late penalties. The Box didn't lead the game until the 70th minute.
I haven't been the biggest fan of Mornay Steyn, but I've always said that he is good and he will come good again, and we needed him to do that. And now we've got a running back line. He's actually starting to come a little bit more into his own, which is good to see because there are very few flyers out there that don't want to run the ball, and it's good to see. But he saved us with his kicking.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I was a bit brave on my call of 50 points for the Box, and in hindsight, I don't think I'll ever pick anything other than a narrow win for anyone in Mendoza because they just seem to go up a level there. I'd love to see them play the All Blacks there because they didn't last season.
I'd love to be there to watch a game. I think it'd be good.
I mean, Tank Lanning tweeted any rugby lover should include a rugby tour to Argentina on their bucket list because he said his words were my aching tit.
Yeah. Just quickly to touch on the Springboks, who just was very, very much out of the mix on Saturday.
Jandre Kruger.
Think so.
Dude, he got smashed when he was hitting rucks. He got cleaned. It was the guy, he's as soft as a pawpaw.
You see, I didn't think that he was. I think he's a bit
no,
more of an asset for us. I was a little bit bummed by Strauss. He does, and I read in the papers, and I got a lot of it from the papers and stuff, where the guys seem to think that he goes a bit walkabout where the tough stuff comes into the shot when he's standing on the wing.
But let's be honest,
we need him to be a tight five as well.
Yeah, the entire pack went walkabout. Let's be honest. People were lambasting Ruan Pienaar's performance, and look, I've always thought that he's slow. Personally, I think Pienaar is there because he's an outstanding wet weather player, and when the World Cup comes around in 2015 on those heavy sodden tracks in Europe where he shines playing for Leinster, Ruan Pienaar.
Yeah.
But he was so dead
slow.
Ulster, sorry. But he was so dead slow on Saturday night.
He was,
and look, he wasn't. Let's be fair to him. He wasn't helped by the fact that he had a pack that weren't exactly giving him clean ball and cleaning the RGs out. And credit to the box, because we can all sit here and go, 60-point win the week before, blah blah blah. But that Argentinian side came out hell for leather. The box made one or two errors early on, and they got their tails up, and then they played the niggly stuff, which they do so well. And at the end of the day, last year the Boks were lucky to win from to draw on a charge down kick. This year they managed to actually get up and get the W, and they've now got a tough tour to New Zealand and Australia. They haven't won in Brisbane ever, and they haven't won in Auckland in 76 years.
It's going to be tough, and what a great sort of two places to go and win. I'm struggling with my words there, but it's a great time to go out and say, listen, well, screw the record books, let's go out and win. My other concern, and it is a valid concern, believe me, is Australia's still going to come good, and I don't want them to think that they can come good against us on Saturday next week. And they get in there. They got in. They stood up to the All Blacks. Where the Wallabies are struggling at the moment is the last 20 minutes of the game, and that will come with time. They're lacking a bit of confidence, but they'll take a lot out of the loss in New Zealand, even though it hurts. But hopefully they don't go home and think they can roll us, because our boys are going to have to dig deep. And I just wanted to chat about fullback. What are your thoughts on having a more experienced fullback for the Springboks against a side like Australia?
I have always had a little bit of concern around Willie Leroux at fullback at top end international level. In other words, playing against the likes of New Zealand and Australia. I still think that he needs to be there or thereabouts, whether he starts on the wing or comes off the bench. And he's played most of the season at the wing. But the guy he's always going to be trying things, and I hope to God that never goes away, even when he makes the mistakes. And you can see how pissed he is when he does make errors and drop balls and miss up and unders. But you want him to keep playing the game that he plays so well, because he really, some of the shit that he can do is just exceptional. He's up there in terms of that kind of player with Ben Smith. Not probably in the same category as Smith at the moment, but he's the same kind of player. You don't know what you're going to get out of him, and Smith doesn't make the errors as much as Willie Leroux does.
Willie Leroux is very dynamic.
But Smith's been in and out of All Blacks sides since 2009.
Yeah. Willie Leroux is very dynamic. I'm a bit worried defensively. I don't think he's up to scratch. I'm also a bit worried about the decisions he makes, and that comes with time and a bit of experience. But
I'd rather have him on the wing than Bjornsson.
I agree with you. I think he should stay and he should start, and I think he should be on the wing, because we need him to be there to do what we need him to do, and everything
but then the debate comes down to Sideshow or Patrick,
and that's the interesting thing. Zane Kirshner has been Heineke Mayer's number one go-to guy at 15 for some time, and Pat Lambie needs some time in the park.
Look, Zane is the better kick chase option, and arguably shades the defensive high ball over Lambie, but you don't lose anything with Patrick at the back there. I've seen him play some games.
He's funny enough had some of his best games out of fullback.
But I would play Lambie at fullback if I knew it was going to be raining. He's arguably the best wet weather exponent in the back line that we've got in this country. Some of his biggest games when he was 18, 19 playing for the Sharks. I remember a game at fullback for Province against Province in the rain where he was just beyond exceptional in his first season. Anyway, time will tell. It's not our call. Hanneke May is going to make the call. It looks like Kirshen's got the inside track on that. Then it's down to whether Willie Leroux is an impact player off the bench or starts ahead of
tackle bags.
Starts ahead of the Son.
I hope he starts on the wing, and I think we need to change at fullback. Whether it's going to be Kirshen or Lambie, I'm not quite sure, but time will tell.
Yeah, we'll chat about that more in depth next week. At the end of the day, the Boks topped the Rugby Championship table after 2 games, undefeated, and have outscored the All Blacks so far. In fact, the All Blacks have scored, what have they scored? 8 tries, and Ben Smith's got 5 of them.
He hasn't stopped. I think he scored 5 in 2.
Yeah.
And he scored 6 in
7
8.
in 4.
Oh, okay.
7 in
That's
4.
close.
7 in his last 4 tests. So there'll be more of that next week. You've been listening to Driving Maul on Loud Radio. Sharky, good to chat.
Thanks.
I'll speak to you next week. Enjoy the rugby this weekend, folks. And remember, follow hashtag Driving Maul and hashtag Rugbanter when the games are on for a bit of a laugh. We'll chat to you later.